The celestial tournament begins. In the grand hall of the Celestial Council, anticipation buzzed like electric tension in the air. Hundreds of aliens, their skin a deep, radiant blue adorned with bioluminescent patterns, filled the space for the millennial interplanetary tournament. At the center, Princess Aries stood tall, her azure skin shimmering under the ethereal lights. Her heart raced as she approached the selection orb, a device that would determine the fate of her chosen planet. This was her chance to prove herself, to show the great race she wasn't the soft-hearted failure they all thought her to be. Aries placed her hand on the orb, willing it to select a formidable world. The orb pulsed, projecting a holographic image of a small blue and green sphere. Earth. The council elder's voice, dripping with disdain, announced Earth as the chosen planet, causing laughter to ripple through the hall. Aries' cheeks flushed a deeper shade of blue. Despite the mockery, she kept her head high. Her rival Zorm sneered, "The softest princess gets the softest planet. Try not to cry when your pathetic humans are obliterated." Aries clenched her fists, her resolve steeling. She would show them all. Meanwhile, Jim, a regular guy enjoying a peaceful evening stroll in the park, was oblivious to the cosmic events unfolding. A sudden, brilliant light illuminated the sky, growing larger and descending rapidly. Confused, Jim fumbled for his phone to record the phenomenon. Before he could, a beam of energy engulfed him, and his world went white. Jim awoke on a cold metal floor, a pounding headache throbbing in his head. The walls around him were sleek and curved, glowing with an otherworldly blue light. He groaned, "Oh God, did I get roofied at a rave?" A melodic voice spoke from behind him. "Your species regains consciousness much faster than anticipated." Jim scrambled to his feet, facing a breathtakingly beautiful woman, or rather alien. Her deep blue skin and flowing silver hair were unlike anything he had ever seen. "I'm Jim," he said, feeling awkward. Where am I? Who are you?" The alien's expression remained impassive. "I am Princess Aries of the Great Race. You are aboard my ship, en route to my home world." Jim's mind reeled. Home world? Princess? This has to be a dream. Aries' head tilted slightly. "Your cognitive functions appear impaired. Perhaps the transport process affected you more severely than expected." She stepped closer, raising a hand towards Jim's face. He flinched instinctively. "Hold still," Aries commanded. "I need to assess your neural responses." Her fingers brushed against Jim's temple, sending a tingling sensation through his body. He shivered involuntarily. Aries' eyes widened. "Human, why do you shiver when I touch you here?" Jim's face flushed. "It's, a normal human response to certain types of touch." "Interesting," Aries murmured, her hand sliding down his chest and lower. Before Jim could react, her hand firmly grasped his most private area. His eyes widened in shock, his heart racing. "Is this an additional neural response?" Aries asked, her tone clinical. Jim's breath hitched. Princess, that's a very sensitive area." "Sensitive," Aries echoed, observing the reaction with scientific curiosity. "It appears to be expanding." Jim was mortified. "It's a reflex, a natural human reflex." Aries seemed genuinely perplexed. "Does this reflex serve a specific purpose?" Jim swallowed hard. "It's a survival mechanism, an evolutionary response to ensure the continuation of our species." Aries considered this. "I see. So this response is linked to reproduction." "Yes," Jim confirmed, relieved. "It's just biology doing its thing." Aries finally released him, though she looked thoughtful. "I will need to study this phenomenon further to ensure it does not interfere with your performance." Jim forced a laugh, trying to regain his composure. Sure. Study away. Just maybe not right now." He shifted topics. "Why am I here? What's going on?" "You have been chosen as Earth's representative in the interplanetary tournament," Aries explained. "The fate of your planet rests on your performance." Jim's knees buckled. "Eliminated, you mean destroyed?" Ari nodded. Correct. Only the strongest survive. It is the way of the universe. Jim protested. That's insane. You can't just destroy entire planets. There are billions of people on Earth. The decision has already been made, Ari said coolly. Earth has been deemed evolutionarily weak. Your only chance for survival is to prove otherwise in the tournament. Jim's mind raced. Why me? I'm nobody special. Ari's expression softened slightly. The choice was random. You happened to be in the right place at the right time. Jim laughed bitterly. Right place, right time. More like wrong place, worst possible time. Ari seemed intrigued by Jim's humor. Your species surprises me. Most react with aggression or grief in this situation. Well, Jim said, we use humor as a coping mechanism, especially when facing potential annihilation. A flicker of curiosity crossed Ari's face. Fascinating. As the ship shuddered, Ari gracefully maintained her balance while Jim stumbled. She instinctively reached out to steady him, their eyes meeting. The warmth from Ari's blue skin, her exotic scent, and the proximity stirred something within Jim. Ari's eyes widened, her cool facade cracking momentarily. We have arrived, she said softly, stepping back. Prepare yourself, Jim of Earth. The real challenge begins now. The ship's door hissed open, revealing a vast alien cityscape. Jim took a deep breath, bracing himself for the unknown. As they stepped out, Ari's gaze was a mix of curiosity and something else, something Jim couldn't quite define. The fate of Earth now rested on his shoulders, the trials of Earth's champion. As Jim and Ari approached the imposing crystalline structure, a crowd of blue-skinned aliens had already gathered. Their expressions ranged from curiosity to outright disdain. Whispers and sneers filled the air as they commented on Jim's appearance. Is that the human? One voice called out. He looks so fleshy and weak, another sneered. Jim felt a flush of embarrassment and anger rise in his cheeks. He glanced at Ari, expecting to see the same disdain. Instead, he was surprised to find her looking almost protective. Silence. Ari commanded, her voice ringing out across the gathering. This human is Earth's champion and will be treated with the respect due to all tournament competitors. The crowd fell silent, though Jim could still feel their judgmental stares as they made their way toward the crystal building. He leaned closer to Ari. Thanks for that, he whispered. But why stick up for me? I thought I was just some weak human to you. Ari kept her eyes forward, but a flicker of emotion crossed her face. You surprised me, she admitted quietly. Perhaps there is more to your species than I initially believed. As they reached the entrance to the crystal building, two hulking guards in intricate armor stood at attention. Princess Ari, one of them growled, the council awaits. They are eager to meet your chosen champion. Ari straightened, her regal demeanor firmly in place. Then let us not keep them waiting. The massive doors swung open, revealing a grand hall filled with the most regal-looking aliens Jim had ever seen. The head counselor, an ancient alien with glowing patterns, leaned forward. This is Earth's champion, the counselor announced. A feeble pink-skinned creature. Laughter rippled through the hall. Jim's face burned with embarrassment, but he stood tall. Ari's voice rang out clear and commanding. I have chosen Jim of Earth as our representative. He will prove his worth in the trials to come. The head counselor's eyes narrowed. For your sake, Princess, I hope you are correct. The tournament begins in 3 cycles. Prepare your champion as best you can. As they were dismissed, Jim noticed the smug grin of a particular counselor. The alien's eyes bored into him with undisguised malice. Outside the hall, Jim turned to Ari. Well, that went great. I think they really like me. Ari's brow furrowed. Your use of sarcasm is confusing, but we have no time for jest. We must begin your training immediately. The next 3 days were a blur of intense preparation. Ari pushed Jim to his limits with obstacle courses designed for beings of far superior strength and agility. Despite Ari's relentless demeanor, Jim noticed her growing admiration as he refused to give up. On the second night, exhausted and sore, Jim collapsed onto his sleeping pod. Ari entered, carrying a strange glowing vial. "Drink this," she commanded. "It will help your muscles recover." Jim eyed the vial suspiciously. "No offense, princess, but the last time I drank something an attractive woman gave me at a party, I woke up with a tattoo of a dolphin on my ankle." Ari's head tilted in confusion. "I do not understand. This is not a party, and I see no aquatic mammals on your lower extremities." Jim laughed. "It's just never mind. Bottoms up, I guess." He downed the vial's contents, grimacing at the bitter taste. Almost immediately, a tingling warmth spread through his body. Ari nodded approvingly. "Good. Now remove your garments. I must apply the regenerative gel to maximize its effects." Jim's cheeks flushed, but he complied. Ari's gaze was clinical and detached as she worked, but Jim couldn't help but feel a shiver run down his spine every time her fingers brushed against his skin. Ari's touch was surprisingly gentle, and her focus on her task was unwavering. "There," she said, finally stepping back. "You should be fully recovered by morning." "Thanks," Jim replied, pulling his clothes back on. "I appreciate your help." Ari's gaze softened slightly. "You are resilient. Perhaps there is something to be said for humans after all." Jim looked at Ari, seeing a glimmer of something he hadn't noticed before, a hint of vulnerability. "Maybe there's more to us than you thought." Ari nodded, "Perhaps. But remember, the trials are not just about physical strength. They are a test of your spirit and will." Jim took a deep breath, preparing himself mentally for the trials ahead. "I'll give it my best shot, for Earth." Ari's eyes met his, a strange mixture of hope and concern in her gaze. "Good luck, Jim. You will need it." As the sun rose over the alien city, casting long shadows across the landscape, Jim and Ari prepared for the tournament's first challenge. The fate of Earth, and perhaps something more, hinged on their success. The first trial. The arena was a marvel of alien engineering, a colossal structure that seemed to float in midair, surrounded by a swirling vortex of cosmic energy. As Jim and Ari entered the grandstands, the sheer scale of the arena took Jim's breath away. The stands were filled with thousands of spectators, their bioluminescent patterns flickering like stars in the dark. "Welcome to the first trial," Ari announced, her voice resonating through the arena. "The trial of endurance. This test will determine if you possess the stamina and willpower required to compete in the tournament." Jim's heart raced as he looked out at the arena floor, which was a maze of shifting platforms, spinning blades, and laser barriers. The complexity of the course was mind-boggling. "Endurance, huh? Sounds like my kind of fun," he muttered, trying to mask his nervousness. Ari glanced at him with a hint of amusement. "You may find it more challenging than anticipated." A loud, resonant horn echoed through the arena, signaling the start of the trial. The platforms began to move, and Jim saw competitors from other planets, some towering, others agile and lithe, taking their positions at various starting points. Each one exuded an air of confidence, their eyes locked on the course. Jim took a deep breath and stepped up to his starting position. The countdown began, the glowing numbers floating above the arena in a vivid display. 3, 2, 1, go. The moment the countdown hit 0, Jim sprinted forward. The platform beneath him shifted, tilting at an angle. Jim barely managed to keep his balance as he leaped onto the next moving platform. His heart pounded in his chest, and sweat poured down his face. The first obstacle was a series of rotating blades, their sharp edges glinting menacingly in the arena lights. Jim timed his jumps carefully, ducking and weaving as he navigated the treacherous path. His legs burned with exertion, but he forced himself to push through the pain. The crowd's roars of approval and the occasional mocking laughter from the stands did little to ease his growing fatigue. Ari's voice cut through the noise, coming through a communicator in Jim's earpiece. "You're doing well, Jim. Keep your focus. The next section is a test of your agility." Jim glanced ahead and saw a series of laser barriers activating and deactivating in a rapid, unpredictable pattern. He took a deep breath and timed his movements with precision, darting through the gaps in the barriers. Each successful pass was met with a surge of relief, but his energy was waning fast. At the halfway point, Jim stumbled, nearly losing his footing. The crowd gasped collectively, their eyes fixed on his every move. He heard whispers and shouts from the stands, some encouraging and others jeering. Ari's voice remained steady and calm. "You're almost there, just a little further." With a final burst of strength, Jim cleared the last set of obstacles and reached the finish line, collapsing onto the ground, gasping for breath. The arena erupted in applause and cheers, though Jim could barely comprehend it through his exhaustion. As he lay there, the familiar sensation of Ari's hand on his shoulder brought him back to reality. "You did well, Jim," she said, her voice filled with genuine admiration. "You passed the first trial." Jim looked up at her, his face flushed and his breath still coming in ragged gasps. "Yeah, well, I'm not exactly in shape for intergalactic obstacle courses." Ari smiled slightly, her blue skin glowing with a soft light. "You managed to overcome the challenges. That's what matters." Jim's gaze shifted to the stands, where the other competitors were already preparing for the next trial. Despite his fatigue, he couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. "What's next?" he asked, trying to catch his breath. "The next trial is a test of mental endurance and strategy," Ari explained. "You'll face a series of puzzles and psychological challenges designed to test your intellect and emotional resilience." Jim's brow furrowed. "Sounds like fun. Just what I need after running through a gauntlet of blades and lasers." Ari's expression turned serious. "Remember, Jim, these trials are not just about physical prowess. They are a measure of your entire being. The more you demonstrate your capabilities, the better chance you have of proving Earth's worth." As Jim took a moment to recover, Ari walked with him toward the preparation area. Other contestants were receiving medical attention or engaging in quiet, focused conversations. Jim noticed the alien competitors glancing at him with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. He couldn't help but feel like an underdog in a competition stacked against him. Ari handed Jim a small, transparent device. "This will guide you through the next trial. It contains instructions and feedback on your performance." Jim took the device, examining it with interest. "Thanks, Ari. I guess I'll need all the help I can get." Ari nodded, her gaze unwavering. "Stay sharp, Jim. Your success here could be the key to saving your planet." Jim's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. The weight of the upcoming challenges loomed large, but he knew he couldn't afford to falter. For the sake of Earth and for his own dignity, he had to push through, no matter how daunting the trials seemed. As the arena began to clear and preparations for the next trial commenced, Jim steeled himself for what lay ahead. With Ari's support and his own determination driving him forward, he took his first steps toward the next phase of the tournament, ready to face whatever challenges awaited him. The mental labyrinth. The transition from the physical obstacles of the first trial to the mental labyrinth of the second was stark. Jim found himself in a vast chamber illuminated by a shifting mosaic of lights and holographic projections. The walls were adorned with intricate patterns and symbols, constantly morphing as if alive. The air buzzed with a faint, electric hum that added to the surreal atmosphere. Ari stood beside him, her expression serious but encouraging. "This is the trial of intellect. You will face a series of puzzles and psychological challenges designed to test your mental endurance and strategic thinking. Each challenge you complete will bring you closer to victory." Jim looked around, taking in the complexity of the chamber. Great, more mind games. He took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. The chamber's central area began to shift, revealing a large, translucent screen with a series of symbols and riddles projected onto it. A voice, both mechanical and soothing, echoed through the chamber. "Welcome to the trial of intellect. Solve the puzzles, navigate the labyrinth, and demonstrate your mental prowess. Begin." The first puzzle appeared, a complex series of interconnected symbols that seemed to form a cryptic code. Jim's eyes scanned the symbols, trying to make sense of the seemingly random patterns. Each symbol shifted slightly as if taunting him, and he had to figure out the sequence to unlock the next stage. Jim's mind raced as he tried to decipher the code. He focused on the symbols, noting their positions and the way they interacted. Slowly but surely, a pattern began to emerge. The symbols were arranged in a way that suggested a sequence of movements and combinations. Just as he started to get a handle on the puzzle, the symbols shifted again, making the code more complex. Jim gritted his teeth and pushed forward, determined to solve it despite the increasing difficulty. Sweat formed on his brow as he worked through the combinations and permutations. After what felt like hours, the puzzle finally clicked into place. The symbols rearranged themselves to reveal a new set of instructions on the screen. A door at the far end of the chamber slid open, leading to the next section. Jim moved forward, his mind still racing from the intensity of the first challenge. The next area was a maze of corridors, each turn illuminated by faint, pulsating lights. A series of holographic screens appeared along the walls, displaying images and words that shifted and changed. A new voice, deeper and more resonant than the first, began to speak. "Welcome to the labyrinth of the mind. Navigate through the maze and answer the questions correctly to proceed. Time is of the essence." Jim took a deep breath and stepped into the maze. The walls seemed to close in on him, and the shifting lights created an almost hypnotic effect. As he moved through the labyrinth, holographic screens flashed with questions and scenarios, each one more challenging than the last. One screen displayed a complex ethical dilemma, requiring Jim to make a decision that would impact a simulated society. Another screen presented a series of abstract concepts and asked him to identify their relationships. Each question tested his ability to think critically and make decisions under pressure. Jim felt the weight of each decision pressing down on him. He had to balance logic with intuition, making choices that were not always clear-cut. His heart raced as he navigated the maze, solving puzzles and answering questions to the best of his ability. As he reached the end of the maze, he encountered a final challenge, a large circular platform with a central control panel. The panel displayed a series of moving patterns and required him to synchronize his actions with the rhythms displayed. Jim focused intently on the panel, his hands moving deftly over the controls as he tried to match the patterns. The process was exhausting, both mentally and physically, but he pushed through, driven by the knowledge that each successful task brought him closer to victory. When the final pattern aligned perfectly, the platform emitted a soft, harmonious chime, and a new doorway opened. Jim stumbled through it, feeling both a sense of relief and accomplishment. Ari was waiting for him on the other side, her expression a mix of approval and relief. "You've done well, Jim. The trial of intellect is complete. Your performance was impressive." Jim nodded, trying to catch his breath. "Thanks. That was intense. I didn't expect it to be so mentally draining." Ari's gaze softened. "The trials are designed to test every aspect of your being. Your success so far demonstrates not only your physical abilities, but also your mental resilience." Jim looked around the chamber, taking in the sights of the advanced alien technology and the array of glowing symbols. He couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at the complexity of the challenges he had faced. As they left the chamber, Ari led him to a quieter area where he could rest and recover. "You've proven yourself capable of handling the trials, but there are more challenges ahead. The next trial will test your emotional strength and interpersonal skills." Jim's curiosity was piqued. Emotional strength, what's that about? Ari's expression turned serious once more. The upcoming trial involves interactions with other competitors and facing emotional conflicts. It will test your ability to maintain your composure and form alliances under pressure. Jim nodded, mentally preparing himself for the next phase. He knew that the trials were far from over and that each challenge would push him further. But with Ari's support and his own determination, he felt ready to face whatever lay ahead. As he rested and prepared for the next trial, Jim couldn't help but reflect on the journey so far. Each trial had been a test of his limits, but he remained focused on his ultimate goal, to prove humanity's worth and secure the future of Earth. With renewed resolve, Jim braced himself for the challenges to come, ready to confront the next trial with the same determination and courage that had brought him this far. The trial of emotional fortitude. Jim's respite was short-lived. Eri guided him to the next chamber, a stark contrast to the earlier trials. This one was softly lit, with a calming ambience and a series of comfortable seating areas arranged in a circle. The walls were adorned with calming images of serene landscapes and soothing colors. It felt more like a retreat than a trial chamber. "This is the trial of emotional fortitude," Eri explained as they entered. "Here, you will face scenarios designed to test your emotional resilience and your ability to form and maintain alliances. The trial will involve interactions with other competitors and simulations that challenge your emotional responses." Jim nodded, trying to steady his nerves. The previous trials had pushed him to his physical and mental limits. Now, it seemed he would need to confront his emotional strengths and weaknesses. As Eri left him in the chamber, a series of holographic projections flickered to life. The first scenario appeared as a simulation of a social gathering, a familiar setting, but the faces and voices were not those of people he knew. Instead, they were projections designed to evoke emotional responses. Jim took a deep breath and approached the first simulation. The holographic scene depicted a friendly, casual gathering where he was warmly welcomed by others. The participants engaged him in conversations, discussing various topics that seemed designed to elicit a range of emotions: happiness, nostalgia, and even mild irritation. He noticed that the conversations were subtly guided to test his reactions. One participant brought up a topic that seemed to be a personal sore spot for Jim, stirring up old memories and emotions he thought he had left behind. The holographic interactions were designed to push him to react emotionally, forcing him to confront his feelings and manage his responses. Jim struggled to keep his composure. He was determined not to let his emotions overwhelm him, but it was challenging. He engaged in the conversations, focusing on maintaining a calm and collected demeanor. The more he interacted, the more he realized the importance of managing his emotional responses to succeed in this trial. The scenarios changed, presenting different emotional challenges. One involved a simulated argument where a holographic participant accused Jim of failing to support them, testing his ability to handle conflict and maintain his poise. Another scenario simulated a situation where he had to comfort a holographic individual who was distressed and in need of support. Each scenario required him to balance empathy with self-control. Jim had to navigate the emotional landscape carefully, offering support when needed while also staying focused on his own emotional well-being. The trial was draining, and he felt the weight of each interaction, but he pushed through, determined to complete the challenge. As Jim faced the final scenario, he was presented with a holographic representation of his own loved ones who expressed disappointment and concern over his decisions. The simulation was designed to provoke a deep emotional response, forcing him to confront his feelings about his loved ones and his choices. Jim felt a pang of guilt and sadness as he faced the holographic projections of his family. The emotions were intense, and he had to work hard to control his reactions. He focused on acknowledging his feelings without letting them overwhelm him. It was a delicate balance, but he managed to respond with empathy and understanding, maintaining his composure throughout. When the final scenario ended, the holographic projections dissipated, and the chamber returned to its tranquil state. Jim sat down, feeling emotionally spent but relieved that the trial was over. Eri reappeared, her expression reflecting a mixture of approval and concern. "You've completed the trial of emotional fortitude," Eri said. "Your ability to manage your emotions and form meaningful connections, even in simulated scenarios, has been impressive. This trial tests not only your emotional strength, but also your capacity for empathy and collaboration." Jim nodded, feeling a sense of accomplishment. It was definitely challenging. The emotional scenarios were intense, and it was hard to keep my composure. Ari smiled. That's the nature of this trial. It's designed to push you to your limits and test your ability to navigate complex emotional landscapes. You've done well, and it's clear that you've developed a strong sense of emotional resilience. As Jim prepared for the next trial, he reflected on the importance of emotional fortitude in his journey. The trials had tested him in ways he hadn't anticipated, and he knew that the upcoming challenges would be just as demanding. Ari led him to the entrance of the next chamber, a place that promised to be a new and unfamiliar challenge. The next trial will test your strategic thinking and problem-solving abilities. Be prepared to face a series of complex challenges that will require both creativity and intellect. Jim took a deep breath, ready to face the next phase of his journey. He had proven his physical, mental, and emotional strengths so far, but he knew that the trials were far from over. With determination and the support of Ari, he was prepared to tackle whatever lay ahead. As he stepped into the new chamber, Jim felt a renewed sense of purpose. Each trial had pushed him closer to his goal, and he was ready to confront the challenges that awaited him. The journey was far from easy, but he remained focused on his mission, determined to prove humanity's worth and secure the future of Earth. The strategic gauntlet. The next chamber greeted Jim with an entirely different atmosphere. Unlike the tranquil environment of the previous trial, this chamber was stark and functional, with cold metal walls and a series of intricate mechanisms embedded in the floor and ceiling. The air was charged with anticipation, and Jim could sense the gravity of the challenge that lay ahead. Ari stood beside him, her expression serious. "This is the strategic gauntlet," she said. "In this trial, you'll face a series of complex puzzles and tactical scenarios designed to test your problem-solving skills and strategic thinking. Success will depend on your ability to analyze situations, make informed decisions, and adapt to rapidly changing conditions." Jim nodded, steeling himself for what was to come. The previous trials had tested his physical endurance, mental agility, and emotional resilience. Now, it was time to confront a trial that demanded intellect and strategic prowess. The chamber's doors closed behind him, sealing him inside. A series of holographic displays flickered to life, presenting Jim with a variety of puzzles and scenarios. Each one was designed to challenge his ability to think critically and act decisively. The first scenario involved a simulated environment where Jim had to navigate a maze with shifting walls and traps. The objective was to find a way through the maze while avoiding the obstacles and ensuring that he didn't get trapped. The maze was complex, with multiple paths and dead ends, and the walls moved unpredictably, adding an element of chaos to the challenge. Jim studied the maze carefully, noting the patterns of movement and the locations of the traps. He used his analytical skills to map out the maze, anticipating the shifts in the walls and identifying the safest routes. It required both patience and quick thinking, but he managed to navigate through the maze successfully, reaching the exit with time to spare. The next challenge was a tactical simulation that required Jim to manage resources and make strategic decisions. He was presented with a virtual battlefield where he had to deploy limited resources effectively to achieve specific objectives. The scenario involved coordinating different units, managing supplies, and responding to enemy movements. Jim took a deep breath and approached the simulation with a clear strategy. He prioritized his objectives, allocated resources efficiently, and adjusted his tactics based on the evolving situation. It was a complex scenario that tested his ability to think on his feet and make quick decisions under pressure. As he progressed through the simulation, he faced unexpected challenges and setbacks, but he remained focused and adaptable. His strategic thinking paid off, and he managed to complete the scenario with a high level of success. The final part of the trial was perhaps the most challenging. Jim was presented with a scenario that combined elements of the previous puzzles and tactical simulations. He had to solve a series of interconnected problems, each one affecting the others, and make decisions that would impact the outcome of the entire scenario. The complexity of the challenge was overwhelming. Jim had to analyze multiple variables, consider the consequences of each decision, and adapt his strategy as the situation evolved. It was a test of his ability to integrate different aspects of problem-solving and strategic planning. Jim felt the pressure mounting as he worked through the scenario. His mind raced, and he had to stay focused to avoid making mistakes. He used his previous experiences to guide his decisions, applying the lessons he had learned from the earlier parts of the trial. Despite the difficulty, Jim persevered. He tackled each problem with determination and creativity, finding solutions that allowed him to progress through the scenario. It was a grueling test of his strategic abilities, but he managed to navigate the complexities and complete the trial. As the final scenario concluded, the chamber's environment shifted back to its original state, and the holographic displays faded. Ari reappeared, her expression reflecting a mix of relief and approval. "You've completed the strategic gauntlet," she said. "Your performance demonstrated exceptional problem-solving skills and strategic thinking. You managed to handle complex scenarios and adapt to changing conditions effectively." Jim nodded, feeling a sense of accomplishment. The trial was intense. It required a lot of focus and quick thinking. Ari smiled. "Indeed, the strategic gauntlet is designed to push your cognitive abilities and test your capacity for strategic planning. Your success in this trial is a testament to your skills and adaptability." With the strategic gauntlet behind him, Jim prepared for the final trial. Ari led him to the entrance of the last chamber, a place that promised to be the culmination of his journey. The trials had tested him in every conceivable way, and he knew that the final challenge would be the ultimate test of his abilities. As he stepped into the new chamber, Jim felt a mix of anticipation and determination. The journey had been arduous, but he was ready to face the final challenge and complete his mission. With each trial, he had proven his worth and demonstrated the strength and resilience of humanity. Now, it was time to see what the final trial had in store for him. The ultimate revelation. Jim stepped into the final chamber, bracing himself for the ultimate test. The chamber was unlike any he had encountered before. It was vast, with walls adorned in shimmering, ethereal light that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. The air was filled with a palpable sense of anticipation, and a large central platform dominated the room. At the center of the platform was a holographic interface, displaying a complex array of symbols and diagrams. Ari was already waiting for him, her expression a mix of respect and encouragement. "Welcome to the final trial," she said. "This is the ultimate revelation. It combines elements from all the previous trials and tests your ability to synthesize and apply everything you've learned." Jim took a deep breath, absorbing the significance of the final challenge. The ultimate revelation was not just about showcasing his skills, but about demonstrating his growth and understanding of the journey he had undertaken. The holographic interface began to project a series of interconnected scenarios, each one representing a different aspect of the trials he had faced. Jim had to analyze the scenarios, identify the underlying connections, and solve a series of complex problems that integrated the skills he had developed throughout the trials. The first part of the ultimate revelation required Jim to piece together a narrative from the various elements of the previous trials. He had to connect the dots between the physical challenges, the strategic puzzles, and the emotional tests. It was a comprehensive exercise in understanding how each trial contributed to his overall growth and how they interrelated. Jim studied the projections carefully, using his analytical skills to decipher the intricate patterns and connections. He realized that the narrative was not just about solving problems, but about understanding the underlying principles that governed the trials. It was a test of his ability to integrate knowledge and apply it in a holistic manner. The second part of the trial was a simulated scenario that required Jim to make decisions based on the insights he had gained from the previous challenges. He was presented with a complex situation involving multiple variables and had to apply his strategic thinking and problem-solving skills to achieve the best outcome. Jim approached the simulation with a clear strategy. He considered the lessons he had learned, evaluated the potential consequences of his decisions, and acted with confidence. The scenario was dynamic, with new challenges arising as he progressed, but Jim remained focused and adaptable. As he worked through the simulation, he encountered unexpected obstacles that tested his resilience and creativity. He had to think on his feet and adjust his approach to overcome the challenges. It was a demanding exercise in applying his skills in a real-world context. Finally, the chamber's environment shifted, and a new projection appeared, representing a symbolic representation of his journey. The projection depicted a path that began with uncertainty and difficulty, but led to a place of understanding and enlightenment. It was a powerful visualization of Jim's personal growth and the transformative impact of the trials. Ari approached Jim as the final projection faded. Her expression was one of genuine admiration. "You've completed the ultimate revelation," she said. "Your performance demonstrated not only your mastery of the trials, but also your growth as an individual. You've shown that you can integrate knowledge, adapt to complex situations, and apply your skills in meaningful ways." Jim nodded, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. The final trial was intense. It required me to bring everything together and apply it in a new context. Ari smiled warmly. "Indeed, the ultimate revelation is designed to be a culmination of your journey, reflecting your progress and the lessons you've learned. Your success in this trial is a testament to your strength, resilience, and growth." As the chamber's doors opened, signaling the end of the trials, Jim felt a profound sense of achievement. The journey had been challenging, but it had also been transformative. He had faced numerous tests, each one pushing him to his limits and beyond. Through it all, he had emerged stronger and wiser. Ari extended her hand in a gesture of respect. "Congratulations, Jim. You've proven yourself to be an exceptional individual, demonstrating the qualities that we value most." Jim shook her hand, his heart filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Ari. The trials were demanding, but they taught me valuable lessons about myself and my capabilities." As Jim left the chamber, he reflected on the journey he had undertaken. The trials had been more than just tests of skill. They had been a profound exploration of his character and potential. He had faced his fears, confronted his limitations, and emerged with a newfound understanding of his own strength and resilience. The ultimate revelation had not only tested his abilities, but had also reaffirmed his belief in himself. It was a journey of self-discovery and growth, and it had prepared him for whatever challenges lay ahead. With a sense of fulfillment and determination, Jim stepped into the future, ready to face new adventures and continue his journey of exploration and growth. The trials had been a transformative experience, and he was eager to see where his newfound strength and insights would lead him next.